Most of us all see new cameras and immediately want it. I don't know if you're like me. I know that I love new cameras. I love gear and just being able to test it out and play with it and, imagine myself using it and seeing what I could do with it. And I like the specs. I like how fun it is to have something new in your hands. But the truth is, most of the new cameras only maybe give you 5% more than what you already have. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but the more, you look into new cameras, the less videos you make, the less photos you take, the less time you spend on your own projects because you're obsessed with getting new cameras or getting new gear. And it almost paralyzes you. This is something that I deal with, and I'm sure a lot of you deal with as well. Today, I just wanted to talk about why you don't need new gear and new cameras, but at the same time, realizing that we all love to get new gear and it's fun to have new things. And sometimes it's appropriate to get new things. So the first thing I want to talk about is what I'm calling the 95% rule. And this is essentially my camera that I currently have does 95% of what, I would want for my project, and 95% of what new cameras can do. That extra 5% rarely changes how the viewer perceives the video or experiences the video. That 5% is maybe a workflow thing or something that I would enjoy having, but doesn't necessarily change anything about the video. And another thing I've found is that I'm much more into the feel of a camera than the specs of the camera. What do I mean by feel? It's not necessarily like physical, the body. I mean, that's part of it, but it's just the overall feel of how it feels to use the camera. I've used a number of cameras, just a ton over the last 15 years. Just having a camera that you enjoy picking up, it immediately kind of sparks that creativity, and you want to go out and shoot, you want to take photos or videos or whatever you're doing, and the camera just kind of inspires you to go have fun and make stuff with it. That is the type of camera you want to have, and that matters way more than the specs that the camera has to offer. So for me, that's been the Canon R5, which is what I'm shooting on right now. The R5 I've had for 5 years now. It's a 5-year-old camera, and when it came out, it had a lot of hype, but also a lot of backlash because it had overheating problems. The image stabilization was wobbly and wasn't really usable. It got a lot of bad, flack for that. And at the time, I had purchased the Sony A7S III, as well as the Canon R5 to test them out essentially and figure out which one I wanted. The A7S III is basically the FX3 without the cine body and a couple of the features. I just found myself gravitating toward the Canon, and before that I had shot with Blackmagic and Panasonic and some other stuff, and I've used Canon before in the past. I just gravitated toward that camera because I just love the way it felt. I love the way it was, just everything about the menus, the way it felt in my hands. I had fun shooting with it, and I love the colors out of it. And there was nothing against the Sony camera. I actually use Sony all the time. I have a FX30 right here, and so I use Sony. I like Sony. For my main cam, I wanted a massive hybrid camera. I wanted a high megapixel camera that takes high megapixel photos and has great color and lens options. I wanted video capabilities that were top notch and 10-bit video and all that kind of stuff. So the specs were there, and the same thing with the A7S III. Like the resolution wasn't there for photos, but it just felt better for the Canon. And so it's not perfect. That's not why I kept it. And there's already a Mark II out. I just love using it, even despite its faults, because it gets me there. It gets my projects done, and it's 95% of what I can get in other cameras. And on the side note, one of the things that's great about using gear that kind of has limitations and doesn't actually do exactly what you need it to do is that it pushes you to be better in other areas of your video or photo creation. So it pushes you to be better at lighting. Like if you have a camera that has bad noise and needs to have a low ISO, you got to get really good at lighting or finding light that you can expose your image with. Or let's say it doesn't have great audio, you got to figure out how to get better audio, or a tighter composition, or stronger pacing in your video, or just storytelling. So like those things right there, viewers, your audience will notice those upgrades way more than like a spec, upgrade from your camera, like knowing that you shot in 8K instead of 4K or whatever. Like they're not going to notice any of that stuff, but they're going to notice when you start telling better stories. They're going to notice when you start making those improvements to your pacing and your editing and like your composition and lighting and that kind of stuff and audio. Like they're going to notice that stuff. So that's a little bit of side tangent, but that's more important than some of these other things when it comes to gear and cameras. All right, so when does it make sense to upgrade? And obviously there's a time and a place for an upgrade. One of the big things is you think about your client work. So if you're missing focus, like if you're at sports or maybe you shoot weddings and the camera's autofocus just isn't performing to the place that it needs to, that's a reason to upgrade. Like that right there is a big deal. If you shoot a lot of concerts or gigs that are in low light and you need something that's better and less noise and can capture, have autofocus that works in low light, that's a reason to upgrade. For instance, the R5 here, it has a record limit still. In 2025, it can only record 29, minutes and 59 seconds, and then turns off. So if you need to record like long podcasts or long videos, you can't use this unless you're using an external recorder. So if you have those reasons, then by all means upgrade the camera. But really what it comes down to in my mind is if it solves a problem that you have every week and it's a problem that is nagging at you, that's when you upgrade. That's different than anything else. So that's to me is when I'm going to upgrade, when the R5, the limitations of it are causing a problem that's giving me headaches every week in my production and what I'm doing in my projects. That's when I'll look at upgrading. On this channel, I want to be able to try out new cameras. I want to hopefully eventually be able to get the new cameras, test them out, give you my thoughts on it. So there's gonna be a lot of new camera stuff hopefully on this channel and gear in general, but know that is not realistic. That's not something you need to be thinking about every year or two. You don't need to be upgrading that quickly. So if you are gonna upgrade, here are my thoughts on that process. 1, try renting the body that you want to purchase. So if you have an idea of what camera you want, try to rent it or see if a friend has it, or if you can somehow get to test that camera out just for a little bit. Because when you do that, you're gonna see what you like about it and you're gonna get that feel, right? So that to me is important. And when you get behind the camera, you hold it, you take photos, you take videos, you do these type of stuff. Even if you're using it in a real project, is even better, because then you get the real feel for what that's gonna be like when you do a project with it. You can get the feel for the camera. You can see if it's a camera that you just enjoy using and you're okay with some of the limitations. Or you might find out you hate it and the limitations are ridiculous or whatever. And so then it's like, man, I'm glad I didn't buy that camera and spend thousands of dollars on the camera. I don't like it. So I would definitely rent first. And I would also do comparisons if you're renting with your old camera. So A/B test the image to see how much of an upgrade it is. And again, sometimes it's not about the image, it's going to be similar. So some of the other aspects might be worth upgrading for. You want to see if there's much difference. And what's interesting is you'll find out it's really probably not that big of a difference. If you have a really old camera, then the autofocus will probably be a lot better. You'll notice that first. But anyway, test it with your old camera. And then the last thing that I would do if I'm picking up a new camera to myself is actually pick up a used body. That's because unless you have to get the newest and the greatest. But for instance, the R5, excellent camera. I would still buy it. If I didn't have it, but I had used it this often and I needed a camera for videos like this or what I need to do, I would still buy something like this. Now there are cheaper options that you can get that make more sense if you're on a lower budget and you're just starting out with video or photos. But for what I want to do and what I need in a camera, the R5 is great, and I would buy it over the Mark II because I don't need some of those upgraded, features or capabilities that the Mark II has. I can get this. I've seen it as low, buying used and in good condition, I've seen it as low as $1,700. That's a steal to me. Brand new, it's still close to $3,000. It started almost at $4,000. To find that for $1,700 is a massive win, I think. And so look for your camera used if you don't need the absolute best top of the line newest camera. Find a used camera. They work fantastic and you can often save money and put the money toward lenses or lighting or audio, which will be much more meaningful to your audience and your viewers. All right, so that's it for this video, but I just want to say, use the camera you love to pick up. If you remember anything from this video, use the camera that you just enjoy picking up and shooting with. If you can find that, you've got a great camera. Keep that camera. And I challenge you to make something with your camera this week. If you haven't published anything to YouTube, if you haven't made a project in a long time, this is your call. This is for you. This is your challenge. Get out there, make a new video, take some new photos, work on some creative project, do something this week and publish it. I think it's important to put your work out there, not just do it for yourself, but put it out there, whether that's publishing on YouTube or putting photos up on Instagram, or maybe you're in a community. If you're not, click the link in the description below. I have a free community that I run called Creator Lab, and it's all about, you know, making videos and making them better and getting better at the craft and the skill of doing that. So you can post it down there and share your work there. That link's in the description. Get out there, make something, and actually use the camera that you have. So thanks for sticking around and watching this video. Hopefully something in there was helpful and helped inspire you to either, you know, use the camera that you have and look at it in a different light, or maybe you need a new camera and you need to upgrade, and this is just the push you got for that. Either way, thanks for sticking around, and I'll see you guys in the next video.